Well, hello everybody. This is Wendy. Welcome. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. I have a Cuckoo clock card to show you. We're using the Cuckoo for You bundle. This is one of my favorite bundles in the annual catalog, and I just really love all the bits and pieces that go together with it. I'm using my Stamparatus and Memento Tuxedo Black ink to ink this up and stamp it. The reason I'm using the Stamparatus is because I want to make sure that I am getting a really good impression. So you can see right here that I don't get a good impression, and you might know why if you are paying attention. All of a sudden I realize I don't have my black mat on my Stamparatus. So this is a great opportunity to share with you. The Stamparatus tool is really awesome, and I still haven't figured it out. I'm still trying to stamp, and like, what is the problem here? Okay, so finally I realized, oh, ding dong, you need your little black mat. So if you're using a Stamparatus tool and you're using photopolymer stamps, like the ones that you see here, that you need the little black mat that comes with the tool. If you're using cling stamps, they have the little red rubber on them, then you need to remove the mat. So whatever I must have stamped prior, I must have used the cling stamp. So anyway, okay, I recorded this video long before my trip, but I am doing the voiceover now, after my trip. So I saved this video and kept it to do the voiceover. The other thing is, you may have noticed this video is 30 minutes long. So right here in the very beginning, I want to tell you, I am going to tell stories about my trip. This video is not edited. It's not refined. So it's long. If hearing personal stories and anecdotes about my life is not something of interest to you, that is totally 100% okay. I just would not click the subscribe button because I do that. I tell stories and I share stuff on my YouTube channel. It's not just card making. So while I make a card, I like to share information about the card, but then also information about my personal life. Okay, so we've got a bunch of stamping done here, and my thought was to do a bunch of stamping so that whatever I wanted to use, at this point, I really don't know what my card is going to be. I just know that I want to use this and I want to color it and I want to spend time coloring and have plenty of options when I go to make my card. So that's kind of why I have all this stamping. I'm using crumb cake for my little reindeer, and we're using Stampin' Blends. If you're unfamiliar with Stampin' Blends, they are an alcohol-based marker, and they do lend to blending. They come in combo packs of a light and a dark. You can purchase them in a combo pack for $9. So 2 markers for $9, really inexpensive price point. I love them. I use them all the time. I also own Copic markers, which are what I would consider the highest version of an alcohol-based marker. A lot of people ask me the difference between the two, and the difference is very simple. The Stampin' Blends lend to simpler blending, and they are less expensive, and they are what I would consider a beginner's alcohol marker. If you are brand new to using alcohol markers, or you've never used them and you're interested in using them and blending them, they are the perfect marker to start with, and then grow your collection from there. They'll really give you a good idea if it's something you want to get into. Copic markers are pretty expensive, and there's over 300 of them, and you have to understand how to use them. I have had to take classes on how to use them because they're a little more complex. So if you just want something to color with and have fun with and not worry about all the complexities, then Stampin' Blends is probably the way for you to go. When one dries out or runs out of ink, you just order another one at $4.50 to replace it, which also is a really good price point. Okay, so on my tree, I'm using pineapple punch. I think this is the dark marker, the dark pineapple punch at the bottom of the tree, because that's where I want it to be the lightest. And then I'm using Granny Apple Green, light and dark, for the tops. You might be thinking, why would you mix yellow into a Christmas tree? There's no yellow in a Christmas tree, but you will see as I continue to go down through this tree why I use the yellow and what a really cool effect it gives. So you can mix Stampin' blend colors together. It does not have to be I just use Granny Apple Greens together. You can mix in other colors. You just have to do some experimenting first and make sure you know kind of how the results are going to be when you do that. I have some previous videos on my blog showing you how to mix different Stampin' Blends colors. In fact, I did a whole series on it. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, I've linked to it below this video and you can check that out. Okay, so I'm going to keep coloring and I'm going to jump back and forth between my trip stories and the card. I have not sped this video up at all so that I would have time to actually talk to you. Generally, when I do coloring, I speed the video process up because it's kind of redundant and, you know, it can be long. So you're going to see coloring in real time and see how long it actually does take me to do my coloring, which I think is kind of a good thing too, that you're just going to see exactly how long it takes me. Okay, so I wanted to share about, so over the next few videos, I'm probably going to be sharing about my trip, my longer videos. And so one of the things is just getting to Rome. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I went on a 12-day trip to Europe. I went to Italy for like 4.5 days and then Greece for 8 days, like 7.5 days. And the trip was a trip that I earned from Stampin' Up. Every year I earn the trip, God willing, and with the amazing help of my customers and my team members, I earn these amazing trips. And sometimes I get to attend them and sometimes I don't. So last year we attended Alaska and that was phenomenal. And then this year was Italy and Greece. And my husband actually had no desire to go to Europe. So I took my cousin Shannon. So Shannon is 6 years younger than me. We grew up together in the same house. You've often probably heard me talk of her. She's more like a sister than a cousin because we grew up together a lot in the same house. Not always. We didn't always live together, but a lot of our lives we did. And she has no siblings. So me and my sister are the closest things she's got to sisters. And I think we feel that well because we fight with her like we're sisters. We love her like she's our sister. And, you know, honestly, I just feel like she is. I just feel like she is like my sister. So I asked her if she wanted to go. She said absolutely yes. And so to back up a little and give you some context, I have to share these things. I have spent most of my life fearing a lot of things. So I have always struggled with anxiety, and this is a little vulnerable to share because it's hard to, sometimes I think like people have an expectation of us, and then it's really hard for people to see past that expectation when they hear certain things about us. So I'm sharing it because I feel like it could help somebody. And actually in September, I'm going to be doing a fundraiser, doing a class that's a fundraiser for mental health because Stampin' Up! Has chosen that as their give back project this year. So I'm excited about that, and you'll hear more about that later. But just from different things in my childhood, I think it created a lot of anxiety in me. And I had weird anxieties or fears over odd things. So for example, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, to the point that it prevented me from doing things because I didn't want to be in areas or in situations that were dirty or gross, and it's honestly, it's people germs. I don't know if y'all have this situation in your lives or know anybody that's like this, but it's more people germs, not animal germs or dirt germs. Like, I don't care about stuff like that. I can go camping. I can, my dogs sleep in my bed. So that's not an issue, but it's more like humans and human germs and that kind of thing that freaks me out. Okay, so that's one anxiety. And then another anxiety is kind of like, the best way I can describe it is the fear of death, or the fear of like something happening to my family while I'm gone, or something happening to me while I'm gone, and what would happen, and blah blah blah. And so anyway, those are fears that I struggled with most of my life. Okay, so they can be debilitating at times, and definitely cause me to not do things that I would enjoy doing or would want to do because of them. So this trip was a big deal for me because I was going without my husband, without my daughter, and I was going to a foreign country. I've never flown or been outside of the United States. So have never left the US. I mean, I think when I was like 14, I went to Mexico, but that's not a big deal because I'm in California. So like we literally drove across the border. I think I've driven or been across the border in Canada. But like to actually go far outside of the US has never happened. Okay, so real quick, I'm using crumb cake. Actually, I think I'm using soft suede. Yep, I'm using soft suede on this clock, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. Okay, so the trip, a big deal. Really, really big deal for me. And so about 2 weeks before the trip, I actually, it was probably more than that, 3 weeks. Okay, so here's another piece of the pie I have to share so that you have the context and the understanding. And I haven't talked about this at all. I have, in 2007, I broke my back. Okay. And I've really not had any issues with my back much at all. Aching here or there or whatever, but I've got rods and screws and all that stuff. My L1, my T12, L1, and L2 are all fused together into one piece. Okay. So in December of last year, I was exercising and I did a yoga move that tweaked something weird in my back. And I woke up the next morning and my entire left leg the skin was numb. So like I could walk, I could do everything, but I had no sensation in my skin. And this sent me into a full on like anxiety, worried, crazy state because I was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? Am I going to lose the ability to walk in that leg? Blah, blah, blah. And I made this huge thing out of it and freaked out in my head over it. Of course, I contacted my doctor and he was like, let's give it a week. You've probably pinched a nerve. He's very mellow and cool and my doctor's amazing. And so I was like, okay. Gave it a week, took Motrin, did ice, the stuff he told me to do. And then the following week I said it's gotten a little bit better, but not really any better. So he put me on some steroids, and within like 2 to 3 days, all the filling had returned and everything was normal again. Okay. So fast forward, I had to go to physical therapy. They told me to not exercise or do anything for at least 8 weeks, give it time to rest, blah, blah, blah. So then, and my physical therapist had said I probably needed to consider changing my type of exercise. Okay. Because I did like HIIT training, right? So high intensity interval training. So fast forward to April, I decide I can start exercising again. And what do? I do HIIT training. So I'm sitting in church on Easter Sunday and I put my head down and I get this weird tingling kind of in my rear end and down one of my legs. And I'm like, what the heck? So long story short, I've re-injured whatever was aggravated. Okay. And, this is going on now. I mean, I still have some tingling. It comes and goes. It's definitely getting better and better. But the doctor told me like multiple things. He said, first of all, that it could be permanent nerve damage, that I could have done something that's permanent, which I'm praying is not the case. Literally praying. I've been praying over that. I've been praying for healing, and also he said it can take months or even up to a couple years for nerves to heal. So I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who have had nerve damage or nerve problems, and you're going to leave me a comment and say whatever your situation is. And so I'm just going to say right up front that whatever it is, just keep having the faith that it can be better. So that's where I'm at. So, okay. So before the trip, I'm having these problems, and I decide on June 18th that I'm going to go ride my bike. Actually, it's my daughter's bike, so I should be honest about that. I'm lying. It's my daughter's bike. So not even a bike that's the correct size for me. So I go on this bike ride, and instead of going where it's nice and flat and like not a lot of stress, I go back behind our house down this dirt road that's got a bunch of hills. And as I'm riding the bike, I am like, this is hurting. But now I'm on the bike and I'm in the middle of it. The next 2 days, I was super sore in my rear end and my legs, which tells me that I'm severely out of shape, which breaks my heart because I was in such good shape prior to all this happening. And I started having weird stuff in my left leg again, where it was like not numb, but just like more tingling and more. So clearly I aggravated it again. So my doctor had given me a second prescription of steroids to help get that under control before my trip. But this sent me into a total tizzy whirlwind of anxiety about going on this trip. What if something happens while I'm on this trip with my leg, my nerve stuff, and I have something crazy happen in another country and they don't know how to treat me, or they do something incorrectly, or I have to go to the hospital there. And like, I went into a full on crazy what if situation. Okay. So this went on for a good like week for me. And when this happens, I go into meltdown mode, and I just am not a pleasant human to be around. I'm not like, I'm hard to deal with. I'm just crazy basically. So, because I'm so upset internally. So, and then I'm projecting that outwardly to everybody else, and it's just awful. It's awful. It's an awful way to live. And if you have anxiety about things, then you totally understand what I'm saying right now, and you're not even thinking I'm weird. If you don't have anxiety, if you are like my husband, who literally has never had anxiety a day in his life, I'm certain, then you cannot comprehend what I'm saying right now, and you think I'm a total loony bin. So that's okay. Like, whatever your situation is, it's totally fine, but I'm giving you the context of this whole scenario because you have to hear how amazing this is in the end. Okay, so I have myself all worked up, and I'm literally so worked up to the point that I'm like, if my cousin wasn't going, I would cancel and I just wouldn't go. Because what if something happens to me while I'm over there, and whatever. So finally, I don't even really exactly know what happened, but I knew that I needed to pray, and I needed to get into the Word of God, and I needed to spend some time focusing on that, because the other wasn't working. I wasn't, like, worrying over stuff doesn't make it not happen. So I've learned so many lessons with all of this. So something happened, and you guys can decide what it was. For me, I feel like it was a divine thing. I believe God healed me and took away my anxiety. I totally believe that. And it's really weird for me to say this to however many people watch this video. But I really feel like that's what happened, because about 10 days or so before we went on the trip, I just stopped. I stopped worrying. I was like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. And maybe if something happens while I'm there that has to do with the nerve problem, it will be because there's a great doctor there that I don't know about that's going to help me. And I just stopped. I stopped worrying. And I slept the night before the trip. I had no anxiety whatsoever. I'm telling you, my doctor gave me a full bottle of 15 Xanax to take with me on this trip. I still have 15 Xanax sitting in that bottle. I never had to use one of them. The germ thing, I had a couple things that I was like, ew, that's gross. But I think some of that is just like good common sense, right? Especially on a cruise. You have to be a little more vigilant about stuff like that. They're even vigilant about it. I mean, going in and out of the dining halls, they have Purell hand sanitizer. It's there for a reason, because you have all these people in one location and germs. So, but I was not my normal self. Even my cousin commented, like, I can't believe how good you've done. I really thought that we were, like, I didn't know. I was a little nervous about this trip. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. And we had a phenomenal time. You guys, my back on a 4-hour flight to Chicago and then a 9.5-hour flight to Rome, my back did not hurt until the very end. Like, at the very end, I started getting a little bit of discomfort, but nothing like I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought my back was going to be killing me to be sitting still for that long, and it totally didn't. I walked 7 miles our second day there. No problems. No issues. No problems. We walked and we walked and we walked and we walked, because it's Europe and you walk everywhere. And when you don't walk, you ride in crazy cabs that are literally, like you're putting your life in their hands every single time you get in one. And so, the walking was fantastic. I had no back pain. I mean, there was a couple days where I had a little bit of back pain at the end, but nothing that wasn't manageable. It was phenomenal. So our trip to Rome went really well. We did not have any issues. We didn't lose our luggage. There was no delays. I'm telling you, like, God's favor just was shining on us the entire trip. We were able to upgrade and get a bulkhead seat, so we had more space in front of us for our legs and our stuff. And we just were really comfortable. We watched movies. We talked. We had a fantastic time on our way over there. When we got there, we were totally exhausted. I mean, not even kidding you, like, so by the time we got there and got all of our luggage and actually got to our hotel, it was like 10:30 in the morning and our room wasn't ready. So we couldn't check into our room. Like, check-in time was like 3 p.m. and we were there at 10:30. So luckily they let us check all of our bags in, and they like stored it for us in the hotel. You know how hotels will do that. So we gave them all of our bags and they stored it for us, and we decided, okay, let's go venture out. So we started walking around and we went into this church, Saint Maria's Basilica, which, so funny, when Shannon was telling the story later about going into that church, she called it Santa Maria's, and I died laughing. I was like, nope, that's Columbus's ship. Poor Shannon. She really struggled with the language situation, I would say more than I did. And pronouncing the different words and stuff like that. But what one of us wasn't the most awesome at, the other one was really awesome at. So it worked out great. So, anyway, it was super fun. And we went into this church and St. Maria's Basilica, and it was so breathtakingly beautiful. And we were like, this is like the tip of the iceberg. This place is right next door to our hotel. And so we were thinking, if this, I mean, what is the next few days going to be like here? Okay, so I'm just going to cut all of this stuff out. Back to the card really quick. I'm going to cut all the things out. All right, so anyway, we go in. It was amazing. We lit a candle in the church for our grandma and for my cousin Sharon, who is battling breast cancer. And our grandma is gone and passed away, but we lit a candle for her and just in remembrance of her. And we prayed and we had a really lovely time there. And then we decided we were hungry. So at this point, we had been awake for something like 24 hours, okay? And so we decide, because we didn't sleep on the plane. I mean, like, we might have caught 5-10 minutes, but I'm no sleep. So this is crumb cake, and it is cut at 4x4. And then this is Poppy Parade that I'm putting down, and it is cut at, I think, 3¼ by 3¼ and I ran it through the tufted embossing folder. So now I'm doing my sentiment. All the products I used today are going to be listed below the video, so, and over on my blog. Okay, so we then decide to get something to eat. This is where I almost die. Okay, like, first of all, crossing any street in Rome is like Russian roulette. People drive like a bat out of Hades, and it is crazy trying to get across the street. I was so thankful I didn't have my kid with me, because that would have really stressed me out trying to get her across the street. So you just kind of have to go. So in America, for those of you that live abroad and have never been to the US, we put pedestrians first. Like, it's a big deal here. When you go somewhere, or like, pedestrians always have the right of way. So they always, you have to stop if you see them standing on the side of the road and they want to cross. We have very clearly marked crosswalks where it's like they're going to cross and traffic has to stop. And it's a big deal here. Okay, so not so much in Italy and Greece. I think the pedestrians are more like, it's like that game of Frogger, you know? Do you guys remember that game where you have to like kind of try to get across the street without getting hit by a car? It's pretty much like that. So we were going across the street and cars had kind of stopped. So we went to go, and I went out in front, and this Vespa passed by this other car. He didn't see me and I didn't see him, and he almost hit me. I actually had to physically jump back to avoid being hit by the Vespa. It was terrifying. So that happened within our first hour of being in Rome. So it was after that I got very respectful of crossing the street, because I was like, okay, these people do not care. They are not taking any cautions, and they will just hit me and kill me. So, although Vespas aren't very big, so I probably would have survived, but probably would have been in the hospital, which wouldn't have been fun. So so we got into this little like deli type thing, and then we tried ordering, and we didn't really know how to order. It was crazy. So then we needed to do something to stay awake. So we went and got on the hop on, hop off bus, which I highly recommend if you are wanting to like tour around Rome. And it was a really fun thing. We actually had access to it for 3 days, but didn't really end up using it. We ended up using taxis to get everywhere, which was fine too. You just have to know how to not get taken by the taxi cab drivers, because they will. There's some of them. We actually never had one that tried to rip us off, but they will. And so we were warned about that. A couple of our friends had that happen. So we knew what to do when we got in a taxi. You have to just make sure they turn their meter on, and there were things like that. So we went and just toured all over on the hop on, hop off bus on our first day. Finally made it back to the hotel. By 6:30 that night, I was done. I'm like, I've been up for 30 something hours. I'm exhausted. I want to go to bed. And we were trying to push ourselves to stay up as late as we could so that we could switch our time clock so that we wouldn't be messed up. And that is exactly what we did. Like we were champions. I was so proud. I'm like, look at us. We're almost like seasoned travelers. So we stayed up, and the next morning when we got up, it was like a normal time to get up, and it changed our time clock right around, because in Greece, it's like when it's like bedtime, it's like daytime in the US, right? So that was a struggle that we knew we were going to have to conquer right away. So we did it, and I was so proud. So we went to bed that night and got up the next morning to start our adventures, which I will share with you in future videos. I will say this: if you are traveling to Europe and you go to a hotel and you don't know how to turn the lights on, you got to put the key card in the slot, people. There's a key card thing you got to put in, and it turns your lights on in your hotel room. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I've so been looking forward to sharing this with you and sharing many more stories about Europe and the things that we discovered. If you want to see more videos from me, click any one that you see here. Visit me at shoploveandstampin.com to order. Bye.